Welcome back to the Sports Source. This segment brought to you by Daniel Hood Roofing. You know, when Daniel was a player at UT, he loved the sound of Fight Vols Fight. Now, as an award-winning roofer, he's still fighting. He's fighting the elements, and he's fighting for your insurance claim. Did he win that fight for you, Bob?
Big.
There you go. Visit DanielHoodRoofing.com today. Read the testimonials. There's a lot more than what Bob just said here. And you'll find a lot of people that are very happy they went with Daniel Hood Roofing. DanielHoodRoofing.com to learn more.
I went into that fight. I was Evansville, but I won.
There you go. That's how good Daniel was. All right. Down south, we tend to think that college football is king. And when compared to other college sports, it is. Let's take a look here at championship. These are the viewers for the last major sports, their last championship. So the football, the Michigan-Washington playoff final in 2024 drew 25.1 million. Okay, that drops down. The women's basketball championship drew 18.7. I would calm down on that number. That's the Caitlin Clark effect. I mean, if you go back and look at women's basketball pre-Caitlin Clark, it was about 3 million. It's grown exponentially with people watching her. We'll see if they can carry over any of that. 18 million is fantastic, though, for a year. Men's basketball, 14.8 million is how many watched. The men's baseball final series, not the whole College World Series. The College World Series last year, I think it was a record with 1.6 million was the average for all the games. 2.8 for the final series last year. And the women's softball series that just ended, Oklahoma winning yet again, beating Texas, that drew 2 million. So you see the numbers there. College football far ahead of anything else. And again, women's basketball, that is an inflated number. If they do it again, I'll applaud them and we'll talk about it. But usually it's not near that. It's usually 10 million from men to men's basketball, men's football to men's basketball, and then to women's basketball. Anyway, let's take a look at the last 10 title games for football, though. Don't worry about the games on the left. I know it's hard to read. But the blue line's all you need to see. The number at the top was 10 years ago. Now, you got 25.1, Michigan and Washington. That's at the bottom. That's the most recent. But that trend is going in the wrong direction. To me, it's not going in the right direction. Now, you had a nice bump there this last year. Maybe that's a turnaround. But I was surprised to see this. In fact, 25.1 million people watched the finals of the playoff this past year. 26.1 million watched Tennessee beat Florida State in 1999. You had more people 25 years ago watching it. So my question, this is glass half full or glass half empty. College football is still making big money. They're still number one in terms of all the college sports. But it's no longer growing in terms of just viewerships getting bigger and bigger and bigger. So, half full, half empty. Where are you? Is college football as healthy as we think? Or do you look at it and say, I'd be a little concerned that you're going this way instead of that way?
I think it's half full because everything else not named the NFL is down, right? So if you can maintain the same
Except for
audience,
women's basketball, but that's a short.
Yeah, that is a one-year sample size with Caitlin Clark, right? But I look at everything else that's there. Every nationally televised MLB game is the lowest one ever that's been nationally televised. Yeah. You're seeing the NBA, the ratings for the NBA this past game one, it was about half of what it was 7 years ago. But just fewer people are watching television. You have more options that are out there. The NFL is the one thing that's completely and totally recession-proof, it seems. But for college football to stay in the ballpark of where they were, I think that's glass half full.
Yeah, softball and baseball, their numbers, they constantly have record numbers. But we're talking about a lot of room for growth because they're not close to football and basketball. I would love to see what the streaming totality numbers are now because it is a whole new world. How many of those numbers are not there?
Well, it depends on what source they're using, but a lot of these sources roll all that stuff together.
Okay. All right. So if that's the case, then, yeah, it's come down some. Probably all the factors and negatives in college football have impacted it. Plus, the market is flooded. There's so much more. It was such a bigger event there where maybe you hadn't seen it. It was a bigger deal. Now you can see a lot of these teams all the time, and maybe a little bit of SEC fatigue. Maybe that's why you had a little bit of a bounce back this past year because of the SEC factor.
That's interesting. What are you doing? What do you think?
Oh, it's half empty. And here's the reason why.
I don't know if you're just playing the role now or if it's...
Go to Neyland Stadium and look at the crowd. It's an older crowd. I think the younger people don't go to games. I think the younger people don't watch games. I think, okay, I'm going to pay attention to the score. And if that trend continues, the guys like me, the guys like us, we're going to age out. And then does your number keep shrinking? So I think people still pay attention. I think there's still interest. But I think the person sitting down and saying, I'm going to be on television or I'm going to sit there and watch my TV for 3 hours. No, I'm going to go do something else and I'm going to keep up a little bit.
Being an outside media guy looking at it, I'm saying it's half full. You're still, for all the reasons you said, you're still making money. You're still number one among college sports. You just signed a mega contract. That's great. If I'm inside it, then I'm agreeing with you. If I'm in college football, and I think any good business person looks at their own business and says, "You're not good enough. What's the next trap door to open?" I just think that's how you run it. And I think if I'm in college football, I'm noticing that trend. I'm like, okay. And I am noticing, okay, it's harder to get people to come into stadiums now. I mean, I recently read, I believe it was a Premier League soccer team, that their marketing group was focused on TikTok because they're finding most of their young fans don't necessarily watch whole games. They go to TikTok and watch the highlights, the scores, that kind of thing. So there is something real about that young people are consuming it in a different way, and a lot of people are consuming it simply as a gambling fix, as opposed to I'm going to sit down and watch the game. I don't know how many people watched Red Zone. I hated Red Zone. I've got my team. A lot of people love it.
I do.
Yeah. I don't want to bounce around. I want my deal. Yeah. But I think the red zonification of sports and having it here means I don't necessarily watch this game the way I used to, locked in. Nope. I'm seeing what else is going on. What's my fantasy team? How much money do I have on this game? So anyway, I think I can go either way on it, but I'm going to go half empty. Look at it as a business. If I'm in college football, I'm always trying to figure out how can we fix things.
The other side of it, I think Vince tapped on something. I don't know that it's SEC fatigue, but I do think there is in the South, we are big SEC fans. I don't know if anyone in the rest of the country cares about the SEC at all because you see non-SEC title games have larger audiences.
Okay, we got to catch a break. When we come back, one power ranking has Tennessee 16th in the nation. It's a little lower than most. One has them number 9. That's a little higher than most. If you had to pick one, which way are you going? We'll ask our resident gamblers here to give their take when we come back.